News. New York 1, it's on in here.
Welcome back. My guest today is newborn photographer Deborah Israeli. Welcome, Deborah.
Thank you. I'm glad to be here.
Thank you so much. It's so nice to have you here. Let's talk a little bit about your career. Before we go into the work that a newborn photographer, and that, I kind of get a laugh when I laugh when I say that, because it sounds like you're a newborn and then you became a photographer. No, your specialty is the specialty of photographing newborn babies. Now, you are a fine arts photographer, you're a photographer, and you actually got started when you were a student at Dwight Englewood High School.
That is correct.
In Englewood,
Yes,
right?
yes, absolutely. I remember being introduced to sort of the world of photography, and I just was enthralled and excited as soon as I got involved with it, and it sort of evolved from that point on through college and graduate school, and then, you know, in a professional arena.
I have to tell you, use the word enthralled. I am enthralled by your photographs, and I'm going to hold one up right here. This is a sample of the kind of work that you do, correct?
That is right.
These are newborn babies, and I'm thinking to myself, my goodness, it must be remarkably difficult to have a newborn baby as your subject as a fine arts photographer. Obviously, though, you're wonderful at it, and you love it, right?
I love it. It makes me euphoric. Every time I'm able to do this, it's nothing more than that. I mean, it's a passion, and that's why I do it. It's not just the photography aspect, it's a whole nother segment that's involved. I mean, photography is in and of itself a challenging, medium, but when you combine the newborns into the whole game, it's a completely different,
Right,
experience.
right. Well, I'm thinking, when parents have a newborn baby, to them, that child is the most beautiful child that was ever born, right? In the history of all mankind.
Absolutely.
Obviously. Now, a lot of parents, you take the baby for the first official portrait of the baby, and, they could look, let's face it, kind of maybe mundane or hackneyed. I don't know what the word I'm using. They all look the same. There's nothing about your work that is really run-of-the-mill, that is for sure. How did you get the idea to pose and to work with newborns in this way? I mean, as a photographer, did you look and say, oh, no, we have to do something to bring out the uniqueness, the specialness of each inborn, the newborn? What were you thinking?
It's interesting because the transgression of how I got into this whole thing is kind of opposite from what you would think. Initially, I had been doing photography for about 17 years professionally, 8 of which have been with newborns and babies.
Was it commercial work?
Commercial work in graphics design arena. I also, transgressed into, I used to do weddings and events and pets and family photography and all that. And even taught in academia at a number of colleges and, even the Art Institute in New York City. I was the department chair over there for a couple of years. And what's interesting is with me, when I had my first child in 2005, I kind of rebranded myself. The kid popped out with red hair, and I was surprised because being a recessive gene, I didn't expect to have that, and so I rebranded myself as Redhead Photography, and I started to specialize in children. And then a year later, by the time 2006 came along and my second child was born, that's all I did, and I didn't, I basically stopped doing everything else. When my first child was born, he was born colic as an infant, and as a mom, I could not soothe my own baby for about 10 months of the first year, and it was a really jarring experience for me. And I think one of the reasons why I'm so good at what I do now is because of the experience of learning how to soothe, through, the turmoil that I went through with my colic infant, and, sort of techniques that I've learned and picked up along the way, which really help and assist me now in what I do.
Because I think anyone who is listening to the interview or looking at the pictures, they're going to say, wait a minute, what if I want to take really unusual pictures of my newborn? How in the world do you do it? I mean, look, you can't give away your trade secrets. I mean, if people want your photography, they can call you and hire you. But obviously, I'm sure that you want to give some tips maybe to newborns, because I'm thinking, man, are they difficult to work with as a subject? Like animals, babies, they squirm, they move?
It depends on the baby. They're all different. Some are easier than others. But generally, I use what I call the HELPS method. It's something that kind of I've designed and designated. Helps, it's an acronym meaning helps. H meaning for heat. There has to be, the studio itself has to be warm. They want to create a fetal environment, so you don't want the baby to be cold, obviously. They're not clothed. E meaning they want them to be fed, they want them to eat. So they have to have a full belly, sort of like a turkey dinner tryptophan effect. They have to be full enough that they're not looking for food and rooting, which is a normal reflex behavior. L, they have to be laying in position before I position them into the bean bag, which is what I use to pose, or the buckets and so forth. P, positioning, the specific positioning of their hands so that they're not atrophied and fisted. That doesn't look relaxed. We want this to look serene, relaxed, and timeless, not tense. And S, to soothe the baby. I have soothing techniques that I use to soothe the baby to sleep and to keep them sleeping while I transgress them through different poses and positions. On average, with the beanbag at least, and combined with the other shots that I do about 10 different setups on average through my newborn session. And when I mean different, I don't mean like just angles, camera angles, I mean actual physical different setups and poses. And the variety of that is really what people come to love, because they have, some people have preferences. Some want bucket shots, some want the hanging shots like behind me, some want, the forward-facing shots. There's another shot that's called a froggy that is very high in demand that people request.
Well, you really have it's like a personification. I mean, you really have each one with its own unique personality. And maybe when you're working with them, you kind of get a feel for what the personality is, and then that sort of is translated into your photograph of the child.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, again, they're all different. So it's not until I work with a baby do I really know sort of which way I want to go. Sometimes when I'm setting up in the morning, I'm not really sure what color, what prop I'm going to use, and it kind of evolves during the session a lot of the time. Like, I don't set everything up, beforehand, because when I get the baby, some babies are just have preferences at this early age.
Wow.
Under 10 days, some of them like the belly, some don't like the belly, they prefer the back, some don't care. It really depends on the baby, and it's it makes it that much more exciting for me, because I can just roll with it, and I like the challenge of being able to sort of think on the fly and develop and design the art.
Talk about the one behind you. The baby looks like it's coming in special delivery from the stork. That really is a special one. I mean, they're all special, but talk a little bit about that one. And I'm not so sure that he's quite thrilled about his delivery, but he's making the best of it. Yeah. What a cutie.
They're all sleeping. That's an example of one of the shots that I do as a composite. What does that mean? That means that multiple pictures are combined into one to create a final output. The reason I do a lot of these pictures as that way, I guess I could technically hang a baby, but I would never do it. Simply because they don't have neck control. They have startling reflexes at this young of an age, and safety is always my top priority. So I will take 2 or 3 pictures, one where their baby is being held underneath as well, one where it's resting on a hard or flat surface so that I can get the upper portion of the photograph, and I will piece them together. And sometimes, like I said, it's 2 or possibly 3 pictures depending on the situation.
Well, good word of advice. You may be really anxious if you're a newborn, the father or mother of a newborn. You're so excited, but safety first. Don't do anything.
Yeah, don't try this at home.
Right. Which you wouldn't want to do it, obviously, anyway. But sometimes it might just happen. Show us some of the props that you use with the children. You say that they love to be in baskets, and you have some here.
We emphasize scale. So when I put babies in buckets and baskets, it's really the point of it is to emphasize the scale of the child. The child being so small that it can fit into everyday objects, so to speak.
Okay. I see you've got some blankets, and you've got some.
This is, type of furry blankets sometimes that I like to use in shots, not only for the aesthetic value, but also because it's soft
and
for them to lay
tactile.
On. And it shields them against any, anything that they're laying on, so that it doesn't hurt, hurt them in any way.
Right.
So this is an example that's used actually in this picture, as well as this bucket over here, which has stuff in it. But this is also, an example of what that particular bucket is. I have so many different
It's a newborn baby bucket. It's so cute. It's a newborn baby bucket.
They always say if you're a newborn photographer, if you go into a store and you see objects and you say, "Can I fit a baby in that?"
Right.
It's a big joke because honestly, I can say that has crossed my mind several times.
It's wonderful. Now, talk about are there any other tips that you can think of for parents who maybe can't get to you? you will never take a photograph of their child because many people will be watching this interview. Any other tips?
For child photography, baby photography, the biggest thing that I can tell people is if you want to take good pictures of your kids at home, again, depending on their age, whether they're newborn or toddlers and so forth, use natural light. It's a lot more aesthetic.
Important, okay.
And, you know, like for example, go near a window where it's indirect lighting. So you don't want to be full-fledged, you know, in the sun directly because the kids are squint or, you know, it might, you know, hurt their eyes. But definitely being by a window where light is coming in, where it's diffused and softened, will always give you a much better aesthetically, you know, pleasing result than using camera flash, which you kind of get that like deer in headlights, you know, expression.
Share with us, if you will, maybe an email address or rather a website, maybe.
Sure. If you would like to book a session or inquire for more details and be one of the 14, you know, selected babies that I do every month and photograph, you can go to www.redheadphotography.net, or you can email me at sessions@redheadphotography.net.
That's terrific. You know what, Deborah Israeli, thank you so much for bringing these beautiful pictures and
You're very
sharing
welcome.
these tips of these gorgeous how to get photographs like this. If you want to get photographs like this, they've got to call you. They got to call you.
Exactly.
And you know, don't be discouraged if you're a newborn, a parent of a newborn. Give it a shot. You heard some tips here today. Maybe it'll work out. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
And when we come back, Leonia Little Leaguers take the field.
Just really like exciting and everyone's just so happy.
It's not about the